Hey, today I'm talking about 3 recent-ish films that I all quite enjoyed, all featuring Alicia Vikander, and are all based on real people. And the names of those films are A Royal Affair, Testament of Youth, and The Danish Girl. First up is A Royal Affair. This is a 2012 film starring Alicia Vikander and Mads Mikkelsen and a few other people you'd recognize. And the basic premise is, in like 1760 something, the rich and powerful have complete control of Denmark, and the current king's young wife uses some manipulation to enact some social policies. But the rich and powerful aren't a fan of that. Also, there's a whole love triangle thing with like his best friend. That's Mads. And it was pretty good. I definitely enjoyed it. Like, for sure, the story was interesting and the performances were really good. I definitely felt for the characters, was both like terrified by the king, but also like he's a buffoon. I really wanted to put this in my top category of really liked, but it really fell off for me in the third act. Like, it was still interesting where everything goes to shit, but I don't know, it just didn't quite hit me right. Like, I feel like it went too long. They also didn't explain things well enough. Like, why exactly was everything going to hell? This feels like this should be like a socialist utopia type of thing. So like, where are the issues? Explain this to me. I'm guessing it had to do with financing, of like they didn't think through how they're paying for everything. And then like the very end of the film where it gives the text of what's going on in the future, I feel like that stuff was super interesting and that would have made for a better third act. That's where the story is, and I feel like that's where they should have pivoted to. Don't get me wrong though, I did enjoy this film a ton. It's just, you know, the last thing from the movie is the end of the movie, so like that's what's sticking in my brain and what I want to talk about. But it was a really interesting story. I love the costumes. Alicia gave a great performance. It was definitely a story I knew nothing about, so I enjoyed learning about this historical event. Definitely felt for the characters for sure. I did have a good time with it. I did enjoy it. I would totally recommend it. It's a really interesting film. I don't think the third act really stuck its landing, but even with that, I would still totally recommend it if you want a good, interesting film about like usurping power from the ultra wealthy. So yeah, no, it's definitely a good, worthwhile film. Next up is Testament of Youth. This is a 2015 film starring Alicia Vikander and Kit Harington, as well as featuring some other actors you would definitely recognize, like Taron Egerton, who was definitely a standout for me. The basic premise is, it focuses on a woman during World War I as she is just dealing with the horrors of war and as her friends and family are slowly picked off. And it's a really interesting little film. Like, you can definitely feel the youth. Like, everyone just feels so young and so young-minded. There's also like this intense passion behind everyone and the strong determination and knowing that they're right, even though maybe they're not always right. And like the explosion of joy that always happens with beautiful moments. It's so infectious. My favorite aspect of the movie was definitely her relationship with her brother, played by Taron Egerton. You could feel the love between them. They're best friends. They understand each other on a level that no one else understands them. Not the parents, not their friends. They just have this deep, beautiful connection, and I really loved that and admired that. It's both impressively written and also well performed, that they were able to convey that without it creeping into romance or anything. Like, it definitely feels like a very platonic but deeply loving connection. The story didn't super surprise me where it went, plot point wise. Kind of once you got into a story, it was more or less clear where it was gonna go. That being said though, when it did hit the place I would expect it to go, the emotional punch of it still worked. So even though it was a bit predictable, the emotion was there, and that's really the important part. So it really negates the predictability of it. So the day I watched this movie, I was not having a good day. So I do think upon repeat viewing, I will like this movie more. I don't think I was that harsh with my review of this movie, but I do think on a better day, this movie would have hit me harder and potentially could have been a really liked. So yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it. It was a beautiful, sad movie. Told a very fascinating story that I would totally recommend. Yeah, it didn't hit me as hard as I would have liked and was a bit predictable, but like, it's still delivered on emotions and great performances and an interesting story. So yeah, no, quite enjoyed, definitely recommend. And lastly is The Danish Girl. This is a 2016 movie starring Eddie Redmayne. And the basic premise is Eddie plays this painter who who slowly realizes that they're actually a trans woman. I think it really does give a phenomenal performance, just like the way he melts into his true gender identity, because it really does feel like they're finding their skin for the first time. And Alicia's character is into it at first because she kind of more so perceives it as a game. It's just like, ooh, this is just something fun to do. But then slowly realizes, oh no, this is who they are, and really truly struggles with that. Now, from what I gather, that's not actually how she reacted in real life, that this movie is based off of a book that's more inspired by real life, not actually a biography, that her character was potentially a lesbian and was very much so into the idea of her husband becoming a woman. Not like forcing them to, but like very much so accepting it. Like, it is a little frustrating that the real life was a much more accepting situation, though I understand why they made the change, just because it is difficult for people to fully grasp someone transitioning. I totally understand that as our society slowly is shifting towards more of an understanding of gender identity and whatnot. So I get it that she's sort of meant to be the audience perspective, being, you know, both for it but also confused by it and struggles to understand it and wants to understand it but is also frustrated by it. Because, like, as I talk about in the movie, it's like one person is dying and another one is being born, and she's married to the person who's dying, so like she doesn't want that person to die because that's the person she married. But she slowly learns to understand that she needs to allow this other person to be born. It is interesting too because they don't straight out state it in the film, but they do hint at it that the main character is intersex, which that in and of itself is really, really fascinating. I do wish they would have dived more into it, though I understand why they didn't, just because intersex is such a complex thing to understand, and they didn't really understand it so much at the time when the story takes place. But yeah, no, I still found it to be an interesting little film. It didn't blow me away by any means, but I do think it's an interesting story that's worthwhile, especially just like if you're someone who is trans, or you know someone in your life who is trans, or just you're more curious about the idea. I do feel like they hit a lot of the points of why it's so important to be able to properly express yourself as a trans person, just like the literal life-savingness of being able to transition. They maybe could have emphasized a bit more about how experimental and cutting edge what they were doing was, like the sex change stuff, but I mean, that's fine. So yeah, would I recommend this? Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting little film that goes to some fascinating places, and it's a worthwhile experience. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got A Royal Affair, sitting number 28 in the Quite Like section. And then after that is Testament of You, sitting number 36, again in the Quite Like section. And then bringing up the rear, not too terribly far behind, is The Danish Girl, sitting number 39. Once more in the Quite Like section. And this is out of a total of 60 old movies so far this year.